Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me for this Power Platform webinar here at Optimize. My name's Chloe Lawrance and I'm a technical consultant here at eacs. And in this video, we're going to be having a look at how we can support our remote colleagues with the Power Platform. So it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. A lot of people are working from home. So I think it's the perfect way to show you some of the great tools and features and artificial intelligence that we can use within the Power Platform to really help benefit your employees. So I just want to quickly touch on what the Power Platform actually is for anyone who doesn't know. So we've got Power BI, which is what we use for our reporting. So it's our business analytics tool. We can pull in data from multiple different sources, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Then we've got Power Apps, which is for our application development. So our mobile apps, our tablet apps, and even apps that can be accessed through the web browser. Then we've got Power Automate, which is where all of our back-end workflows take place. And again, we've got so much we can do with Power Automate, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later on as well. And finally, we've got Power Virtual Agents, which is the chatbot functionality. So we can create chatbots to go on a customer-facing website to do things like answer questions, to help with support tickets and things like that. And finally, the other main features of the Power Platform, which are the Common Data Service, which is a relational database. It's a great option for storing your data, particularly for those line of business essential applications. We've also got data connectors. So this is connecting to things like Office 365, your custom applications, third parties, whatever it may be. We can create a connector and connect and pull in that data and utilize it in a Power App, or maybe just report on it in Power BI. And finally, AI Builder. So this is where we can build those artificial intelligence solutions. So the scenario that we're going to have a look at today is the weekly check-in app. And it's really a great app for when we want to support our remote colleagues. And what I'm going to do is show you some of the flows and the back-end processes behind it and kind of how it all ties in together. But first of all, let's take a look at our data. Now, as I said before, this data is stored in the Common Data Service. So let's have a quick look at this solution and how all these different elements tie together. So we've got our weekly check-in entity, which is our main entity here. So every week there's going to be this weekly check-in record. And associated to that, we have our sentiment data. So again, that's the calculation of how positive and negative the statements are that are taken from that weekly check-in. We've also got things like key phrases and focus areas and focuses, which is what the user can choose from when they go to submit their records. So let's have a look in our weekly check-in entity and take a look at some of that back-end data. And if we filter to show all of our fields, we can see that these weekly check-in records are getting created on a frequent basis. And this is all of the data that's been inputted by the user. So how is that data surfaced in our app? So let's go over and take a look at our application front end. So here in our application front end, first thing that you'll probably notice is that this has been set out for a mobile application. However, we can still access it through the web browser, but this just enables our users to easily and quickly submit their weekly check-ins. We can also see that there's some Power BI reports embedded into this app, and we can see that it's providing us the overview for this particular month. So let's go through the steps of actually submitting some data. So I'm going to click Submit Update to complete my week ending on the 7th. And here we're taken to a very simple form for our users, and you can basically provide a rating on how well that your week went. So I'll fill this out now. So in the what went well, I'm going to say that I had a great time in the office. And for what I've struggled with, I'm going to say that I didn't get much chance to work on my goals. You can see that we've also got a pop-up here saying, would we like to make our manager aware of this? And if we selected yes, it's going to automatically schedule an appointment in my calendar and with my manager's calendar as well, when we're both available, and it will do all of that for us automatically. And that's just a flow running in the background. But in this scenario, I'm just going to say no. I'm going to say no, I haven't had time to focus on my goals. And I'm going to say that I spent 15 hours traveling this week. So now it's calculating our wellbeing score for that particular entry, and that's when our Power Automate flow is running in the background. So now that flow's run, you can see that we've got a nice page that's actually calculated our well-being score for us. So here we can see our positivity rating, which is only 43. And over here we can see our negativity rating, which is 57%. And I'll take you through the flow on how that was calculated shortly. We can also gather some insights. So based on this score, our app has recommended a particular thing based on what the data says. So it can see that we're having some trouble in the week because we've got that low positivity rating, and it's actually provided us a suggestion to book some time off. And this number of days has actually been pulled in from our holiday booking application using APIs. So in this scenario, I'm going to say that yes, I want to book some holiday, and we've got our quick holiday booking window open here. Now, this doesn't mean to say that you can't go into whatever holiday booking system it is and do your booking from there. It's just that we've created that connection with the API of our external absence system, and we're allowing that data to be sent to our third-party application using an API. So I'm going to do my start date as in 2 weeks' time, and then let's just do a break for 3 days or 2 days. So we can now see that the days have been calculated, and I'm going to click request holiday. So what's happened now is that flow has run in the background to go and send that data off to our absence booking application. Now, we could create an app to do our absence system ourselves, but in this scenario, we've already got a third-party absence tool that we use internally, and that's why we just simply send in our data from our app to that tool instead of creating it from scratch. But that is an option as well. So another thing that we've got here on our insights is we've got some tips down at the bottom. So this is telling us to book out some time in our calendar for our wellness. So what this is going to do is, again, look at our availability in our calendar and book some time in, some 1-hour slots for when we've got that availability, so we can have some time to focus on our well-being. So I'm going to select book wellness. And now that's complete as well. So that's all that happens in the front end of this app. So it's very straightforward and simple. So now that flow has ran to book in our calendar appointments, let's take a look at what's actually happened behind the scenes in Power Automate. So it's been triggered by a button press in our Power App. So all we need at the top here is a Power Apps connection. What happens next is it finds the meeting times of me because I'm the person who's triggered that flow. You can see that it then pulls through all of these meeting time suggestions. Now this is pulling through whenever a few gaps in my calendar that it can see that I'm free. And then for each of those appointments that it finds, it will actually create that event for me. So now all of those appointments are in my calendar, and I know that I've got that space booked in for me to focus on my own well-being. And it's just a nice way to have some breaks as well from if you're in back-to-back meetings, booking out that time before you get stuck in loads of back-to-back meetings and you don't actually have any time to focus on the tasks that you actually need to do. So let's have a look at another flow now and review the sentiment analysis flow. So let's do a refresh on this one. And have a look at that sentiment analysis that ran in the background as well. When we submitted that weekly check-in record, let's see what actually happened. So we can see that it's discovered that a record has been actually updated on this particular entity, which is our weekly check-in. And you can see that it's gathered all of that data from what I've entered when I use the application. Now we're creating a few variables there. Now these are what we're using to store particular bits of data. So in the what went well, for example, it's pulled out the text that I entered from that what went well field, and it's put the value in here in this variable for me. And it just makes it easier for us to use those throughout the flow. So the next thing that's happening is it's initializing our positive score and our negative score. So there's two different scores, one for our what went well statement and one for our struggles of the week statement. And what we can see that takes place here is our key phrases are getting extracted from the text that I put in. So in this scenario, we can see that it's pulled through, I had a great time in the office this week. And the key phrases that have been extracted for me are great time, office, and week. So that's perfect, and it means that we can use that data and analyze it in our reporting. In our negative key phrases, we can see that it's got time and goals. So they're the two words that have been picked out of that statement that I said. Now, the next thing that we're doing in this flow is detecting our sentiment. So it's going to detect how we're feeling based on those two text fields that we entered from the application. So our score for this statement is 0.78. So if we think of that as a percentage, that's 78% positivity in that statement. Now in our struggles text area, we've got a score of 0.07. So we've only got 7% of positivity that's been detected from that statement. We're also pulling out some of the key entities that were discovered from these statements as well. And then we are setting the value of the score for each of the scores that are pulled out. What we do next is combine the scores together to give us an overall score, which is 43%. And then we're going to create a record in our sentiment data. So all of this information that we've just been gathering from this flow, we don't actually have anywhere to store it yet. And we don't really want to put it in the weekly check-in record. We can put it in our sentiment data, and that will be associated to our check-in record. So our sentiment data gets created, and you can see that that overall score field gets filled in, as well as some of the other fields of other data that we've pulled in from this flow. And the next thing that we're doing is creating our key phrase records. So all of those phrases that we pulled out, we're creating a new record in our key phrases entity. So again, it's another separate table. So we've got our weekly check-in, we've got our sentiment data, and we've got our positive and negative phrases that are all in our key phrases table. So we've got relationships between these tables. Because it's a CDS relational database, we can create those relationships, and it makes it really easy for us to manipulate the data when it comes to reporting on it in Power BI. The third and final part of the Power Platform that we're going to be looking at in regards to our weekly check-in solution is our reporting. And this is really where a lot of the value can be found from everything that we've done in our app, all that data that we've pulled in and those flows that we've actually ran. So here you can see that we've got a weekly check-in overview, and we've got the ability to filter this based on user or on a particular date range. You wanted to filter on other things, that's perfectly fine. You can do loads of different ways to format and filter and slice the data to make sure that you're seeing the information that you want to see. So in this overview, we've got our main focuses, and the larger the size here means the more times that it's been focused on. So we've got a lot of people that are working on internal projects. And remember that we're looking at everyone across the business. We can also see what our focus ratings are based on the different focuses. So we can see that when someone works on admin or technical support, we're usually getting a rating of about 3 out of 5. So we're really getting some in-depth analysis on how our users and employees are feeling when they're working on particular tasks. And finally, on this page, we've got our key phrases. So this is looking at those phrases that we pulled out from those statements and we stored into our database. And we've got the larger phrase here based on how frequently that particular word or phrase has come up. And it allows us to see and pick out keywords and what people are saying a lot. So we can see that people are often using the word week, internal and project are coming up a lot, and also exam. So to do more with this Power BI report, we can drill down on particular bits of data. So I'm just going to select the internal project here. You can see that the other elements of this report have been automatically filtered for us. So we can see that on an internal project, our morale score is actually higher than our average score across all of the focus areas, and we can see that that's 73%. Again, we can see that our rating for internal projects is just between 3 and 4. And we can also see some of the key phrases directly associated to when someone is working on an internal project. We can also select and filter elsewhere. So if we want to select a key phrase, for example, exam, you see that a lot of the time an exam is taking place when people are working on internal projects and admin. We can also see that our morale score goes down slightly when the word exam is mentioned, which is kind of expected. And we can also see that the ratings that people have given for that particular week based on that word. Now let's also have a look at some of that filtering. So we'll select myself. And you can see how this particularly comes in handy when doing things like end of month reviews. If you want to drill down to a particular user and get more data about that specific person, then that can be done as well. So although all of our data is kept within one database within the common data service, we can actually drill down and filter and sort and view that information however we want, display the data that we want to see. Another thing to mention here is that we've also got our security. So if we do only want users to see their own records, then of course that can be done as well. But here we're taking a bit more of a management level overview. So we've filtered on myself now, and you can see some of the common phrases that I've been saying specifically and what I've been focused on, and also how I've been rating that focus as well. So the next thing we'll have a look at on this report is our travel. So I'm just going to move over here. My pages down the left menu, and this is looking a bit more in depth about that travel information that we submitted. So all we're asking for the user from that front end app is to literally press and drag a slider and say how many hours they've been traveling. So with regards to our travel duration, we've got a goal of 100 hours a week, and across the business this is actually hitting 960, which is really high, and we can see that it's really above our goal, and so that's been highlighted in red. We can also take a look at how our travel duration affects our score. We can see here that actually, generally, when people are spending more time on their travel, their overall well-being score is higher. Now, this is just demo data, so we would usually expect to see something slightly different. We can also see our time spent on our goals compared to how frequently we're traveling. So you would usually assume that the more time that someone's spending traveling, the less that they've got to spend on their goals. We can take a look into this a bit deeper for specific people. We can also see our travel duration by user here, so we can see which members of the organisation are travelling the most. This is how we can report on all of that data that we've gathered from that very simple, very straightforward user application. We can just gather so many insights based on that data. So finally, just jumping back onto our slides, after seeing all of this information and seeing an application, you're probably thinking, how on earth do I do this? Just a few steps that you can actually take in getting started with the Power Platform. So a good place to start is at a very simple level. So this might be automating some tasks that you find quite cumbersome. It might be that you have to send an email every week with some data in. Why not create a flow to automate and save yourself some time? The next thing to do is start approaching some of those challenges that you see in the business. So it might be at a team level, or it might be across the whole organization. There may be some issues that you're facing when supporting your remote colleagues. It might be that you're struggling to handle asset requests and you need a nice solution to be able to allow people to submit those requests and for them to go through to the IT team. It might be that you have news that you need to send out on a frequent basis, but you want to have a nice centralized location to be able to do that. And the next step up from that is creating those line of business applications and starting to change that mindset from being which third party do we go to actually considering, is this something that we can actually build internally? It really is all about understanding those challenges that you face on a personal level, team level, or organization level, and start considering how you can actually overcome some of these. And that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed that slide, and do please get in touch if you have any questions. Thank you.